as tonight's moderator, and I have big shoes to fill. Joy. It was wonderful last year, and I don't know how after you. Thank you, Corinne. Thanks, Tyler, for coming down all the way from the big city area, and well, kind of big city to us. Anyway, I'll let Corinne and Tyler talk about their own businesses, and you'll learn a lot more about them as they talk back to me and us. But I have got 3 or 4 questions that I want to hopefully get some answers that'll help folks in the audience learn more about starting a business in Vermont. The first one is, and all of them are going to come from me and my experience owning and running a business in Vermont. I have a family business that's been in business for 35 years, and it's evolved into the second generation, which is me, and you know how that goes. So my first question is, a lot of times we hear out there in Vermont particularly that Vermont is a nurturing or testing grounds for businesses in the greater world of space, and where businesses maybe want to take some time to meet their test base of customers, and place where nobody really knows what's going on. The other folks that I hear that's more negative is that it's too small and nobody knows what's going on. So I'd like to hear your thoughts after having started your businesses. What you think is really going on in Vermont relative to, is it a great testing spot where you can nurture a business up through tests, failures, successes, or do you think there are challenges that are really difficult because we're in Vermont? And I'll start with Corinne.
Hi, everybody. That was a loaded question to kick off with. I own Skeeta Headwear and started it in 2008 when I was 17 years old. For those of you who are new and not yet familiar with the brand, we started making hats in Vermont up in the Perk Mountain Academy I was a Nordic ski racer. So I was creating hats for myself and my teammates that to me met the requirements of moisture wicking, breathable, colorful, all the desires of a 17-year-old endurance athlete in the winter. And I guess to bring it back to Paul's discussion point, Vermont was the kind of hotbed for where we started, and an even tighter subset of Vermont is the ski community, and that was one that we kicked off and just had a really great positive response, and that just snowballed into the rest of the outdoor community here. And I think one of the best things about Vermonters is that we have an amazing network beyond the state, and so I attribute a lot of our growth from word of mouth and people sharing their hats outside of Vermont to their friends. And today we look at our customer base. I think we have to look at it in 2 scales of, we have our Vermont following, and they understand and appreciate the value of a made in Vermont product. And then we have people outside of Vermont of the nostalgia of a Vermont brand, and that carries strong throughout, all the way out to Alaska even. But that's twofold.
I have called recycling machines that take waste plastic and convert it into the feedstock for 3D printers. We're focused around that conversion of waste. So that's something I've grown up with and have always been interested in how you do that. I think Vermont for me and the company now has been removed from the bigger Silicon Valley, and it's been a hidden gem, right? We have a warehouse that's kind of off the beaten path. It's kind of hidden, and we don't have a big sign on our warehouse, and we kind of like it that way. We did have a family from Pennsylvania just show up one day, and we're like, what's going on? But the main thing is you can really focus on your ideas here, and I think that's it's been a good thing for me, because I have so many ideas. I could start a business going, headed home. I'll start another one. But it's been great. It's there's so many resources here, like friends and neighbors. The knowledge base that we have has been amazing. if you look at the inventions that come out of Vermont, it's really mind-blowing. And Vermont was a huge manufacturing place over in Windsor. There's American Precision Museum. That's where they started the whole like mass producing of firearms, but then that tied into just production of parts. So very interesting industry we have.
Great, thanks, Tyler. So to that point, I think everyone in this audience knows that we've got some great companies in Vermont that have started here and then blossomed out into the world. And I'm sure all of us could think of at least a half a dozen each, and we're real proud of those. And I think it's great, particularly when we all are working in the Vermont environment and we all hear the news about an aging demographic and an aging workforce, and that, yeah, every once in a while a company does actually sell and is acquired by a big worldwide company, and we should be proud of that because the people that have created it are successful and have gotten it maybe to their end goal. But then when we sit here and we have a young group of entrepreneurs that are building companies in Vermont, we need to get that in the news as well, because it's what encourages folks like Corinne and Tyler to continue to do what they do. And then the next question I have leads me into this about the economics and the workforce of running a business in Vermont. So we read the news. We see that the state likes to report on a lot of different data sets, and then we out in the media talk about or read about things about the workforce and the challenges we have. I know in Southern Vermont, we're always challenged in the tourism industry for hospitality and service industry. It's hard to find a carpenter, it's hard to find a plumber, it's hard to find someone to wait on tables or clean a hotel room. But those are our challenges in a very tourist-driven economy here in Manchester. But when you talk about what you're doing, there's even more technical needs probably in your businesses. And I asked the question of, is Vermont, in your mind, what are the components in Vermont that make it successful for you to be here and stay here? And I ask the question often, is it affordable? And affordable may not be in an economic sort of sense, but maybe in, are there enough people to fill your workforce needs? Are there enough resources in education? And I'd like to hear your comments and about any of those you choose to answer, because that's another loaded question. Oh, a bunch of things, but if you could give us your comments as young entrepreneurs growing a business and faced with the economic, the workforce, the education challenges we all read about. Let's go back to Tyler.
So much pressure. I think I've always said it's hard to find people in Vermont, but that's like if you're looking in Vermont. And I think as the world becomes more, work wherever you need to with laptops, cell phones, networks, it doesn't really matter where you work, right? And that's something we've been exploring is, we don't have that for us, the plastic knowledge, right? In the state of Vermont, we have Husky injection molding, GW Plastics. I'm sure there's a few other out there, but if you're looking for somebody to fill a role in a warehouse, that's hard to find. But yeah, that's kind of the beauty of it is it is hard to do that in Vermont, but if you can get through that and have a successful company, that's what makes us stronger, being able to do that. I'd answer that in 3 different ways. So
I'm following. We're also looking for help in our warehouse. Wait, Tyler, before I start, how many people are on your team?
We have 4 full-time right now and 1 part-time.
How many in the warehouse?
We don't have a warehouse.
Okay.
Well, we do have a warehouse. So we actually used to do all of the production, the design, production, and customer support. And now we just do the research and development. So now we're just we're playing.
R&D lab.
R&D lab, yeah. Mad hacker lab, right? So we play with the technology, we build it, test it, and then we hand it off. We have an assembly company that puts it all together. They do all of our fulfillment. They're in Vermont too, so we're excited about that. But yeah.
So Skita is based in Burlington currently, and we have a full-time staff of 7, counting myself. And that is when we were just opening our space for the Art Hop, which is a Burlington arts event, and we had about thousands of people walking down Pine Street, which is where we're located. And we got to show some people around our office space, and it was really fun to tour them around and show them everybody's workspace. And people come in and they expect to see the sewing, and we explained to them that everything except for the sewing happens here. And so in our Burlington warehouse, or in our Burlington headquarters, essentially, we have our warehouse, which we bring in product from our sewers in the Northeast Kingdom, and all of our product gets packed and shipped in Burlington to go out to retailers, online orders, to our showroom there on Pine Street. You name it, everything has to flow through those doors to go out into the world. And there's a lot of different roles that come into that space, and it's a 2,400 square foot space, so it's not enormous, but we have some nooks and crannies where we have our warehouse, and we have the pack and ship area, and we have offices and little design areas with big bulletin boards. And the beauty of having a small kind of entrepreneurial environment like that is that we get people that come in and they might start working in our retail store for a season and find out that they really want to join our sales team, or actually they'd rather come back next year and help pack boxes. And that can evolve into something maybe more dialed in with our production, and then the next year they're driving the van to our sewers to pick up product. And there's a lot of, we're all wearing a lot of hats, not to be too funny, but because it's seasonal as well, we have just a constant flow of responsibilities, and have a shorter or smaller team to try to cover all of our bases. So in our space, it's a dynamic work environment, and having people, it takes a certain type of work style to be okay with that and to thrive in that environment. So it's definitely a difficult hiring process. It's not just someone who walks in the door, that's the right fit. It's got to be the right fit, and it changes every year to year because we bring on between 2 and 6 seasonal roles depending on how the year is going and what jobs and responsibilities we have available. So there's that hiring and workforce in Burlington, and then we work with contract sewers in the Northeast Kingdom to sew all of our products. And we've really worked hard over the last couple of years to get it to a point where those sewers are always stitching throughout the year. And that way, we're not driving into fall like, oh my God, we need thousands of pieces. They're sewing through April, May, June, July to build our inventory for essentially a 4-month selling period. And so we've been really lucky to have this network that we've been working with for about 8 years now. And because they're contractors, they're responsible for the hiring and building their workforce. But it's been an amazing experience seeing them grow while we're also growing. And that didn't really.
No, that was cool, actually.
A lot of complaints
I didn't know about the sewers in the Northeast Kingdom. That's pretty nifty, isn't that pretty nifty? Yeah, see? Pretty cool. And that's like a supply chain thing. We got our own little thing going in Vermont, and your company, supply chain, Northeast Kingdom, Burlington.
I do want to say one more thing about it. The people will often reach out and say, how did you find your sewers, and how did you, where can I need somebody to build X number of products for me. And it's really hard to relate to the angle that they're coming into, because the way we found our sewers was so unusual. And while I was at Burke Mountain Academy, the head of maintenance on the grounds, his wife was a sewer, and we were stitching hats on the campus, and needed help sewing more, and we had made him a hat, and he showed it to his wife, and she wanted to sew. And so we worked with her for a little bit, and it got a little bit too crazy for her, so she turned us over to her friend who had previously worked on a factory floor in Newport when they used to have the Louis Garneau factory. And so one thing leads to another, and that is very classic Vermont, in my opinion, of you talk to your neighbor about what you need, and they know somebody, and before you know it, you have a whole army of sewers behind you. That's a little tidbit for the Vermont.
No, that's cool. That's the network thing. I think we take it for granted in Vermont that it's the small part of Vermont, the 4 borders. We have you know, everybody knows everybody pretty much, and or at least if you don't know the next person, somebody you know does, and that's a way a lot of businesses seem to grow. And when you throw in the internet and social media as communication tools, it sort of just goes crazy quick, as opposed to picking up the phone or sending a message. I've got two more questions. Mark, what do we have for time? Keep going? Okay, good. So, all right, cut me off when you want me to cut me off. So, I know in my life, one of the biggest pieces of advice came from my father, actually, who said, you need to find yourself a mentor, and it's not me. And that was business advice. And if your mentor isn't working out, or they don't think it's working out for them, you need to find another one. And sometimes you need to find one or more than one, because sometimes there's a generational gap. So I want to ask you, one, do you have a mentor, or more than one? And are you willing to reveal who it is and what they've done for you? And it may not be a formal person, right? It could, or that you've said, oh, that's my mentor, but somebody out there that maybe made a difference in your business and your career so far, that you would look back to or think about. I mean, I think of those people every day, and what would they think, or what would they be what would that person do in this situation, right? It's kind of that person on your shoulder. So I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on who that person is, if you're willing to reveal them, or just tell us some thoughts or experiences. So who wants to go?
I'll go first. I think I have a lot of mentors in different areas. So I have a few business mentors. I won't reveal their names because they at some point might not be my mentors. Still a friend, but no, I think I fluctuate, because some people are really good at the business side. I have engineering mentors who I'll go to, and one of them, I'll help sugar his land, and then I'll, sit down and talk to him about, some design of a gear or shaft, and figure that out that way. So it's almost like, I don't get too close to mentors because I want to keep them friends, and I think what I'm afraid of is always burning out my mentor and just getting all I can from them and then moving on. I don't want to do that, so I just keep them as friends, and I think that's the best way to do it. So yeah, I have a lot. Oh, actually, one book, I will mention this one, Ricardo Semler, he owns Semco, which is a big company in Brazil. He has two books. He might have a third one coming out, but 7 Day Weekend and Maverick. Two awesome books. They really changed my whole thought around how businesses run. And I think that was really important with our business, where we're a research and development company. That's what we're coming into. He really kind of just opened that up, really work on what you're interested in, and make sure you're getting work done, but make sure you're interested in it. So finding that balance and that shift has been important.
Great, thanks, Tyler. Corinne.
I would second with you in my strategy has just been to find people in the areas that you need help with, and sometimes there's definitely not one resounding person, but over the last 10 years, an undescribable amount of people have been involved and helped me and guided me, whether they knew it or not. And I think with mentors, you always have to take the advice you get with a grain of salt, and sometimes it works for you and sometimes it doesn't, and having the ability or insight to discern what is helpful for you and what's not is probably the most important thing about dealing with a mentor and having a mentor. And because my business is so multifaceted, like Tyler, there isn't just one person that holds all the answers for me. And a lot of times I find myself reaching new obstacles or challenges that I don't know the answer to. Maybe the people I've currently been in touch with don't know the answer to, and it forces you to look onward and find someone that might hold the info that you're looking for. And I love that aspect. I think that always excites me when I get to a point where, maybe I remember negotiating our commercial lease a couple years ago for the space we're in now, and I didn't know the first thing about it and hadn't ever faced this before. So I started talking or asking my parents, hey, do you know anyone that does commercial leases? Or maybe the lawyers know someone that's a good person to talk to, or attorney's office, and they point you into the right direction. And you, like Tyler said, I think getting a chance to sit down with that person and know that you jive, or that you're on the same wavelength, really helps. And that always excites me, of meeting someone new and describing the situation I'm in and seeing if they can help, and if not, maybe they can open a door to the next available helper. But I wouldn't be where I am today if I was in a closet working by myself. By any means.
Do you have a real oddball, like, mentor story where you got the biggest piece of advice in the most awkward situation, like, that just sticks in your head? We can go back to that after the next question. Think about that. Okay. So you have it. I know you have it. Any
But maybe it
entrepreneur
was
has
so
it.
awkward that I just pushed it out of my mind. I don't know.
But you took the idea.
Yeah, I think what I take from mentors is, like, I'll just run something by them, like, hey, how stupid does this sound? And if it sounds like really stupid, if they're like, yeah, it's pretty stupid, I'm like, all right, I'm onto something. And then I kind of like...
There you go.
Yeah.
You got it. We'll come back to you. A little...
It's better for the R&D guy.
Yeah, oh, definitely, yeah.
So on the, just so that everybody gets their money's worth here. So on the idea of tips and for our audience, you both have very successful companies, and this is a pretty funny comment I'll make, and take it whichever way I want. Everybody from the outside thinks all of these companies are very successful, but I know as an entrepreneur, you sit some days in your house or your office and say, holy moly, this is crazy. How does everyone think this is so great, right? And then you get to go to events like this where people are looking to you for advice about your company, and that's pretty cool. So here it is. Can you each give us 3 tips that you think made a difference in how you set out and how you arrived today behind this table, where people out here think you have a wonderful company and they want to know your secrets? Technically, don't tell them your secrets, but maybe give us some tips so that we can make our businesses or our life better. And I don't know if it's on the theme of starting a company in Vermont, or keeping a company going in Vermont, or and I keep hitting on the Vermont thing, but that's kind of why we're here. But you can also just in general, like ideas in business. What's something? Give us hopefully 3 ideas that matter to you, that made a difference in your business, that you think would help others out there.
Maybe we can ping pong this one.
I was just thinking
And come back to the awkward.
Right.
I lost
mentor
one.
thing.
So with Skeeta, it's like I said, it's a seasonal business, so I find that there's continuous ebbs and flows. Obviously, when winter comes, things are bustling, it's super busy, we're growing, and then in the end, in the spring, it really kind of simmers down a little bit, and that's always kind of awkward, is that kind of slow down feeling of like, whoa, wait a second, now everything kind of gets quiet, and we're working behind the scenes for a few months over the summer, and then it picks back up again in the fall, and you start seeing the product around, and the holidays hit, and it's crazy, and then it dies back down. And so there's this continuous ebb and flow, and mentally it can be really challenging when you're not like always just growing. And so I often think of Skeeta and the brand and the business as this like ship, and the ship's gonna keep going. It's not gonna like suddenly stop and sink. Like that just doesn't happen. Think of the Titanic. It's great. It's a little bit of a dramatic ending.
That did sink. But
that did sink. But there's nothing. The bigger it gets, the harder it is to steer, which can sometimes be challenging. But it's going to keep going, and I often have to remind myself that it has a lot of momentum. And even though we face these slow times of year, which is something we're working to build against, or just build to keep ourselves busy and have some more revenue in the summertime, it's something I definitely have to kind of remind everybody that we're still cruising, and it'll get busy again. And it's a tough one to navigate.
I found some, yeah, but not the paper. Oh, you have paper. No, you can use paper if you need it. It was that 1 point? Wow. All right. So,
Corinne 1, Tyler 0.
yeah, I know. One is like money, right? So, you know, we all, at least a lot of us, when I see people starting business, it's always like, oh, I need a bunch of money to do this, right? And you really don't. Like, my first prototypes were scrap metal, right? Like, I made it look good and, you know, painted it nice and polished it up, but I didn't need a lot of money to get it done, right? And I think that if you take that idea and test your ideas and are able to build something and start slowly, it's going to be slow going. Maybe that's the second point I have already. But yeah, if you can build it without money first, well, use your money first and then use someone else's, but and it lives and goes forward, then do it that way. But I don't think money is a way to solve a problem. Yeah, so that's 1 point. Money.
And slow going.
Slow going. That might be, yeah.
Okay. Tyler 2, Corinne 1.
Are you copying mine?
I knew it would come back
Not
to a
competitive.
competition.
So I have a couple of things written down here, and I'm trying to maybe merge two into one, and I guess I don't really want to piggyback, but I'll go with mistakes. And when you're trying something new, you can't nail it every time, and we have this saying of always make new mistakes. And you know, if you're making the same mistake over again, you're not going to head in the right direction. And new mistakes, though, are really healthy, and you learn from them and you move on. And you know, I always have, every time you hit that wall of shoot, that was dumb or that wasn't right, the negative points can always be turned into a positive as long as you're not making them over and over again. So yeah, new mistakes are the way we live by.
I kind of want to piggyback on that one. Like, failing is failure is the ultimate fail, right? Because you haven't continued, but it's okay to fail and continuously iterate. And like when we do R&D, like I spent so much time building something that doesn't work, but I found like that joy in building that item, that new prototype, and it failed. So then I just, you know, kind of got rid of it and started over. But I think if you apply that to the sales you do, all the relationships you build, the products you build, it's going to find its way. And I think embracing that failure is really important. So there's that piggyback. I do have another one. If you are growing a business, like once you get it going, I think a big piece and something I'm still working on is replacing yourself, right? And not replacing yourself so you can go, you know, sit on the beach. I actually don't like beaches, so that's a good thing. But you want to replace yourself with smarter people. I mean, I have people at the team that are smarter than me. I think everyone at the team is smarter than me, right? And I like leverage them, and I probably make them mad every once in a while, and we get work done. But replace yourself in the role you're in, and that'll strengthen it and allow you to continue to grow.
That's a good tip. Particularly, I think a lot of company owners do that probably later than they should. Succession planning and I mean, how old is your company, Tyler?
7 years. So we started in 2011.
Right.
Yeah. And I mean, it started myself, and then I had to move out of certain positions and stop micromanaging. And you know, it's a thing. At some point, you do have to micromanage, and I do still micromanage to some extent, but I start to, you know, hand things off and be like, okay, it's going. Like, I think that's that ship you're talking about, right? Like, you're building this ship. Let's hope it just stays its course and finds its way. So, yeah.
That's a great tip. Corinne, any ideas on your awkward mentor moment? Thought? We're back on that.
I guess I mean, what you ended on with surrounding yourself by people who know more than you, and I remember, this is not awkward, but maybe I can make it awkward at the end.
Can we make it like the best, like mentor? How about just the biggest
The best
highlight?
is good. Good idea. Awkward's a weird word.
It could be awkward, if yours is awkward.
I don't have a coherent line or answer for this one.
I have one.
Yeah, go.
Okay, so I am like trying to focus the more I do business, right? And that's been one of the things I've been finding is like talking with mentors who really focus on one or two projects. They focus on their business and their life, and they don't have 4 or 5 businesses, right? And this really wasn't from a mentor. It was because I was connected with this mentor. But I flew out to Chicago. This was last year, and bought a tour bus, and then had to get up on stage and explain to the whole crowd that I was building a tour bus with a helicopter landing pad on top. And that was like, it was awkward and really interesting. But that was like that point where it's like, wow, I could work in this way and like do all these crazy projects and all this, but really I should be focusing on the team I have and really hone in on what I'm good at and what we're, our mission. So that was like a big turning point. Awkward.
The idea of, one of the entrepreneur's biggest sicknesses is that distraction causes and can cause failure, right? So I suffer from this sickness as well, where I show up and say, well, we're going on the ship this way, but all of a sudden I think that island looks better, so let's go. And then everybody in the ship says, well, that doesn't work because everything on the ship is for that island. And it takes an army to convince a leader or an entrepreneur to say, hey, we like your idea, but it's kind of stupid right now because the ship's got food for that tropical island and you want to go to Antarctica or something. And to that point about going to Chicago, I know I suffer from all those. In fact, my chief operating officer says, Paul, he has a coined term, that is a classic distraction. And let me tell you about it. And let's go to lunch.
My key word is scattered.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to like keep that together.
Yeah, and once you hear that, boom, you're back on track, or you should be. And then every once in a while, those ideas they sort of pile up over there, right? And they sit in a trunk, and you go and grab one and try and throw it back at the group or yourself.
Or a different way, a little spin on it. Yeah.
They never go away.
Nope.
So, I don't know, that's and I've had myself awkward moments with my own team or a mentor who will say, you told me about that 5 years ago, it's still not good. And then it goes back in the trunk and whatever. Or times have changed. I mean, one point or question I wanted to make tonight, and how are we doing on time? Okay. Well, I don't know. Okay. So, how old is your company, Corinne?
We were founded in 2008, so 10
8.
years.
Oh, so what month?
Technically January.
Okay, so you lived like 6 to 8 months in the good times, and then the recession hit. So, my last question really, and I think this is I want to end on a positive note of, here we are 10 years later, and I don't know if anybody reads the Wall Street Journal and New York Times, but a lot of people are reflecting on the 10-year anniversary this week of all of the economic sort of blow-up. Lehman Brothers, go down the list, right? So you're reading these articles, where are they now? And I wanted to talk about that now because with a young entrepreneur and a young company, you've grown your company in what people are saying is the world's worst recession. And how do you feel about that? And it's interesting, you lived 6 months in a time period that was kind of cool, and then come September 15th or whatever it was, 13th of 2008, the wheels came off. And we're sort of just getting new tires on now, 10 years later. What are your thoughts on that? In a positive way, my reflection is that it seems like it's made us all really stronger. Just like curious to know what your thoughts are, being young in growing a company in the last 10 years?
Why are you looking at me? I don't.
I'll start. I guess since I started in 2008, it's pretty fitting. When I started, I didn't know what entrepreneurship meant. I didn't know what that word was. I was a teenager making hats, and you break it down, and then slowly, I went to college and learned about a balance sheet and learned how to look at a company over 5 years. And at that point, it's 2009, 2010, and I guess just what we were talking about with the kind of organic growth, having a company grow organically, finding your staff organically, making a product that it either catches or it doesn't, and that really just brings you to a better place of trusting your gut and going with it. And I thrive off going against the grain, and I joke, okay, maybe my mentor joke is like being a salmon. And I remember sitting down with a mentor when I was in college, I think my freshman year, and he's had some experience in apparel and accessories, and he's looking at my hats, and he's like, well, I just don't know how you're going to be able to grow as much as you want to grow without finding other opportunities for manufacturing. And I thought that in the back of my head and was kind of like, I'm not gonna change that. It was a challenge. It was like, okay, I'm gonna see how big I can take this while keeping the sewing here, keeping the stitching here, and that just kind of, it goes against the grain, and it goes against the assumption that, okay, this is a bad economy, a bad time to grow, and you have to fight a little harder, and there's a lot of resilience and tenacity that goes along with keeping the salmon going upstream. But yeah, it's getting better now that we're out of that, or I don't really have a good perception of the way it was beforehand. I was 15, I was in high school, and so this is it.
Yeah, I think that's like you mentioned how it like battle hardened you, or how it like made that stronger. And I think that manufacturing's coming back. I think that supply chain you built, I'd love to know more about it. That is so cool. And that was kind of the core of our technology. Not our technology, but what we were building off of was people could have these 3D printers in their homes making objects, right? So it was really this, speaking to the question of the stock market, I don't really know if we've had that effect, or if we've seen it or felt it. I hope we don't in the next crash. Hope we don't feel it. We'll see how that goes. Yeah.
When is the next crash? Okay. Well,
Ending on a positive note.
no, I know. So, right, Tyler?
Bitcoin? Blockchain?
Blockchain. I heard it out there.
That did crash.
So, Corinne the salmon, that's a great analogy. I like that a lot. I'm going to use that. I don't like salmon much, but I think it's a good one, the swimming upstream thing. And the boat, I think you win on the points.
Definitely.
Yeah, the awkward mentor or the analogies or whatever those became, the best. So, thank you both. I know Mark has some Q&A. Do you want me to do the Q&A? Yeah, you got to walk the mic right. Okay, so if you don't mind, we've probably got about 15 minutes for some Q&A with the audience, asking hopefully both of you questions, no questions to me, and then we'll get together afterwards for the shameless plugs. And then Mark had mentioned some networking and beers or something at the Reluctant Panther. So until it's dark, right? So thank you. That was fun. Thanks, Tyler. And Mark, here's the microphone.
Questions? Both of you, thank you very much. That was great. Have either of you ever, are you familiar with B Labs and B Corps? Have you guys ever looked at that?
That's the employee ownership?
No, that's an ESOP.
Okay.
It's totally different. But a B Lab is a beneficial corp. The B Labs is out of Philadelphia. And but it's a certification that you're basically doing social good and having a social mission. I'm really thinking of it more for the hat than the fiber stuff, but have you ever looked at that? I was just curious.
Yeah, we actually, that came up in the springtime. We try to do like a team retreat type of thing. We reflect on the year, and we kind of set some big goals for ourselves going into the next year. And one of the things we talked about in the last year or two has been the B Corp setup or the certification and what that entails. And just recently we ran through kind of our first diagnosis, essentially, of where you land on the spectrum of being able to be certified. And they rank you with like a percentage of how you fare or compare against other businesses that are your size, and the age that you are, and the stage that you're at. And we know there's a lot of things that we learned about just what we have set up on a kind of an HR, like organizational standpoint. And there's a lot of things that we just didn't have answers to, like how much electricity are you using? We're like, well, we can ask our landlord what our electric bill is. But it gets into the nitty gritty, and which is great, because now all of a sudden we're asking ourselves these questions of, well, what is our recycling program in the office, and are all of our benefits outlined in a handbook, and what are having flashes of all the things we were talking about. But it's an amazing platform to start thinking about all the aspects that the company or whoever's behind I don't know who organizes or kind of created the B Corporation model, but it's a great way to have businesses start thinking about all these aspects that maybe you wouldn't ordinarily think about, and we're excited to start tackling that. You know about it? I guess
I haven't. I've heard of it. I think King Arthur Flower, is on it.
Alchemist as well. A lot of Cabot. A lot of Power. Okay. I was going to say a lot of like produce agricultural companies, which makes sense because they're so connected to their supply chain, I think. And typically more of the manufacturing process happens under their roof. So that's something, a lot of the questions that we face too are about, our fabric suppliers. So we're like, oh my gosh, we have so many questions. And it's a good way to start looking critically about who we're working with and what we're doing.
Thank you for speaking to that. I'm just wondering about being young and being a business owner, and how being millennials entering, basically being the next baby boomers, how you face challenges from that and how you use that to your advantage. Thank you.
I love that question. I think keep knocking on the door. If someone laughs at you, or if you think somebody isn't giving you that respect, well, one, you shouldn't be working with them, but keep pushing. I mean, if you have a good idea and it's moving forward, good ideas change the world, right? So if you have a good idea, you have to keep crusading for it and pushing for it. Don't let it hinder you. I think that's the biggest point.
Yeah, and I think we have a lot of tools and skills that maybe we take for granted, or think I've become more aware of the kind of technological savviness that comes along with just growing up with having a computer in your household as a young person, and growing up with the internet. And it's not by any means what it is now when we were adolescents or figuring it out, but a lot of that comes intuitively. And so you have this kind of inherent set of skills that is unique to a lot of other generations, which I think is really fascinating, and it allows us to think really innately about sharing moments and sharing stories, which goes into marketing and branding. And it's really natural for us to, hey, this happened, I'm going to share a picture and talk about it, and then you send it out to the audience because you have this platform and means to do so, and then your story is out. And that 10 years ago or 20 years ago is a completely different chain of events and how to tell stories. So that comes really naturally, I think. I can't speak for you, but just growing up with that, the communication and information has really opened that door. And then I love when I come up to, so for example, I had recently I import some products from Nepal. I've been working with some cashmere suppliers in Kathmandu over the last 4 or 5 years as this passion project. And it's been an amazing learning experience. And most recently, I guess in the last year, there was this mandate that to help Nepal after the earthquake, that all imported woolen knitted goods would be free of tariff. And so we use FedEx. They ship us this package of knitted goods, and there's a huge tariff bill, and they've already charged me, and I'm pissed. And so I have to start calling FedEx, and you get these like hotlines and the same person, and you have to really navigate this kind of old school network of corporations and who to talk to just voice your issue. And sometimes you go to the state and you pick up the phone, you call the state rep and you say, hey, I have this case. And knowing like what tool or what you can, how far a phone call, so this is kind of on the opposite side of the internet platform, but how much power you have in picking up the phone and voicing your complaint or your issue or something you need help with goes so far because people want to help, and it's a direct way to get in touch with someone and ask questions. And usually I'm always mind blown by what gets done or what is able to come of those points of outreach. And it's nice being a young person and feeling helped.
Oh, we're getting old. You know that, right?
No. How old are you?
25. Yeah.
27.
Oh, right under the deadline.
This is great, what you guys did. Quick question for you, and this, I don't know if this is a question or a suggestion, but you're pretty inspiring as far as like how often you go talk to schools around here in Vermont. Because I think you went to Burke Mountain Academy, my kids go to Staten Mountain School, competitor, frankly, but you know, if you went back to that school and talked to them about some of the entrepreneurial stuff you're doing, that's a great message, and you bring something to the table right there. You know what I mean? Like, you're keeping, because a lot of what happens is people talk about, everybody goes, you know, to school here, lives here in Vermont, then we go to Boston, and then we come back. And that's kind of the pattern that happens. I think you've got something there that breaks that pattern. So, I don't know if that's a question or a comment. Thanks.
Thank you. It's very flattering to hear. Thank you.
We've spoken at like maker fairs and like smaller events, but not specifically to like students.
Interns.
Actually, my brothers have a running tab for how many times they have to explain the business to all their friends, and yeah, so technically we have spoken, but yeah.
I'm getting more familiar with some more public speaking opportunities, and so there's everything from next month I'm speaking at Senator Leahy's Women's Economic Opportunity Conference in Randolph, Vermont, and it was an amazing opportunity to be selected as the keynote for that. So that's like really probably the biggest thing I'll speak to. But this spring, I think in March, I had a request from an elementary school in, what's next to Peacham, the Barnett School, which is kind of south of St. Johnsbury and east of Peacham, and talk to a bunch of ages between 4th and 6th grade. And I love the experience because it's simple. It's like, hey guys, you know, who likes to ski? Do you guys wear hats? Cool. And you start there, and you talk. You know, you take a hat off, and you're like, look at the seams. This is how, you know, you break it down, and it's at the end of the day, this isn't rocket science. It's, you know, basic math and scalable concepts. It's pretty fun to break it down and keep it simple. And the elementary school experience was probably the first I've done, and something I left just like feeling so invigorated and really inspired, and just really happy that was. I have also spoken to some college groups where you know kids are literally on their phone, and they're thinking about the paper they have to go back to write, and I get that, and you leave kind of feeling like you didn't make as much of an impression, but to have 10-year-olds looking up at you like they kind of follow along is really, really cool. But I think usually if an opportunity comes up and it's scheduling wise available, I usually try to jump on it and hey, I'll drive down to Manchester, Vermont and what it's all about. But it's good to hear that feedback. Thank you. This is the first of our tour, actually.
Oh, we're starting a tour. We'll take the tour bus. Yeah. Well, it was a side project, and it's gone.
Corinne, you talk a lot about the organic nature of your business and how it started was very natural, very organic, and very much the way I think a lot of Vermont businesses grow. It's sort of like, I have this idea, I've got some resources here, and have you, where are you now in terms of like looking beyond Vermont and growing your product beyond Vermont, growing it beyond perhaps the ski season, and taking it on on that next level? And or is it something that you're looking at, sort of keeping it small, keeping it very Vermont based, and sort of maximizing it as that sort of a business?
My approach to growth over the last few years has been working with so the business has grown from our working capital, and so I look at our cash flow season to season to look at how much we have available to spend and what's going into payroll over X number of months where we're not selling, and so that is kind of like, this is how much we can grow, this is how much we can spend on growth this year, and that has been a stepping stone. And granted, there are a lot of factors that have to go into that. So we have to have a cold winter, and we have to have those stars align for a really successful winter. But in terms of the seasonal growth, that comes into the capacity of our team and getting ourselves to the point where we can start thinking about summer products. And ultimately, you have to be building summer products in the time that we're selling. And so you have to add in staffing for that, and that's been something we're starting to look at, of what are those responsibilities that would go into making that happen, and how do we add to our staff to make it. And that is definitely part of our planning, and just conceptually, strategy-wise, just to stay small has been, I love being able to comprehend the steps of growth that we've had. And I hear a lot of you read books of crazy entrepreneurship stories, guy who started Zappos or something, or the business literally grows faster than they can keep up with it, and that's really intimidating. And there are times when I think I'm a little in over my head and trying to wrap my head around the stuff that is going on. And I love the idea. I love that I'm being pushed as a leader, and I want to be able to kind of stay on top of it. And my limit is kind of when I don't want to be submerged to the point where you let it grow and it's in somebody else's hands. And at some point maybe that's the right time, but I'm learning so much from what I'm doing now that we're trying to grow within our means and keep it organic, which has been fun. It's the real deal.
Thanks for being here. So Corinne, quick question. Manchester's a ski town, a shopping town, a tourist town.
You could say the same thing about Burlington.
And we have a great outdoor gear company right here on Main Street and up on the mountain. Are your products available here in Manchester?
I believe the Mountain Goat carries us. And
that's what I was looking for.
Right, all right, bug, done.
Quick question. Anyone else? So we're going to start with the shameless plugs, and I actually forgot to call out my friend Peter Watson Campbell of the Crooked Ram. So we're going to start with you, and we're going to pass the mic around, and everyone gets a minute to 2 minutes for a quick elevator pitch or talk about whatever they want to talk about.
Thanks, guys. That was good.